Alright, so you're studying Stasiland and Never Let Me Go. Let's just get into it. As you probably already know, Stasiland and Never Let Me Go are a comparative text, which means that we need to look at them in comparison to one another. And that's where my convergent and divergent strategy comes in. I'll be using this strategy throughout this video as I look into the theme of memory. For today's video, I won't be touching upon the convergent and divergent strategy in detail, but I'll come back to this later in the video and show you where you can find out more about it. So let's dig into memory. One convergent idea is the importance of memory and the act of remembering. Both Stasiland and Never Let Me Go illustrate the importance of remembering through the very construction of the text. This is done through the very purposeful selection of how the text was created, through the narrative voice, the structure, even the subject matter of the text. Both narrators are looking into the past to try to make sense of history. For Kathy, this is the meaning of her life. But for Funda, it is an act of witnessing history and speaking for the victims. Neither narrator can claim objectivity, and both are aware of the challenge of putting forward an entirely accurate picture of the past. After all, when we think about the past, it often impacts us, and that's what makes their interpretations subjective rather than objective. In the act of writing these texts, Kathy being the implied author and narrator, as well as the protagonist, both Funda and Kathy have demonstrated their belief that it is important to understand the past to make sense of our lives. However, they both also show how we live with memories and how they continue to impact our lives even once the events we remember are quote-unquote over. Funda is not only exploring people's memories to understand what life was like in the GDR, she's also revealing how Easterners live with their memories and how they affect and shape the present reality of their lives in reunified Germany. Likewise, Kathy's memories of Hailsham, Tommy and Ruth impact how she accepts the reality that her time as a carer is nearly over, and soon she'll begin donating and eventually complete. This is a really great theme for you to discuss because we all have memories naturally as humans. And so by drawing upon your own understanding and your experiences with your memories or the memories of your family and friends around you, you can take those insights into your understanding of Stasiland and Never Let Me Go. And that's what's going to help you create your own unique interpretation of the two texts together. So while you're listening to my video, yes, it's going to be super helpful because you know, it's LSG, but I want you guys to kind of take it to that next level and appreciate that you can have your own interpretations because this theme isn't foreign, it's something that we can all relate to. Kathy is trying to understand the meaning of her life by piecing together her memories. Recollecting and structuring her past to understand it as a unified whole is an act of establishing identity. Kathy's act of protest against a society that believes her life means nothing comes from her positing the existence of a reader for her narrative. This places her autobiography in a social framework with the purpose of communicating her life, turning her life into a historical account that exists beyond the limit of her death. Funda acts as an outside witness to the trauma of people struggling to untangle their past internally. Both narrators appear to believe that having a better understanding of ourselves in relation to the external world can offer clarity and comfort in the face of pain and death. This is partly why so many East Germans wanted to access their Stasi files, to understand how the intimate details of their lives were part of a broader operations of the GDR. Let's now move into another converging idea between these two texts, also still based on memory. So what I'm doing here is I'm showing you two different angles from which you can approach the term memory. Rather than going basic and just kind of like wrapping everything up as memory and having potentially too much to talk about and two, therefore not really honing in on the details, what you want to be able to do is sort of segment the theme into smaller sub-themes that you can discuss. This will make your writing more specific, which in turn shows your examiner or teacher that you are very capable of handling these two texts in detail. So convergent idea 2, museums and galleries, the enduring relevance of memories of the past. There is a tension in Stasiland between how individuals deal with their past and how Germany as a nation collectively comes to terms with the legacy of its history. the Cold War, the World War II, Nazism, and the Holocaust. One response that characterizes the government's approach to dealing with this history is to create museums and put the history on display. Anna visits multiple Berlin Wall museums and a Stasi museum. There's a debate about what to do with Hitler's bunker. In opening these buildings to the public as museums, the country is aiming for transparency and remembrance. In the instance of the Stasi headquarters, its transformation into a museum is victorious and cathartic. The Stasi headquarters was previously the most feared and mysterious building of the GDR, and now its operations are on full display. However, the creation of these museums suggests that this history is over and ceased to have a hold over Germany. One of the central purposes Funder has in interviewing individuals is to reveal how this history is continuing to influence and shape the lives of East Germans, those for whom this history is still a reality. Funder is frustrated with the tourists she observes at the museums. She finds them distasteful because her work has given her an understanding of how real these issues are for so many people. Funder is not against museums by any stretch, but she's advocating for an understanding of Germany's history that acknowledges that the people are still grappling with these events and what they meant. Her concern is that museums offer people a way to distance themselves from the immediacy of the history and separate themselves from both the causes and effects of the Stasi. Exhibition is also used in Never Let Me Go to distance people from the horrors of ethical introspection. In collecting and displaying the clones' art, Madame and Miss Emily explain their motives. We took away your art because we thought it would reveal your souls. Or, to put it more finely, we did it to prove you had souls at all. However, they seem not to have engaged with the meaning of the clones having souls, as they never argued for a change in their fate or creation, only the conditions in which they were reared. The issue of whether they have souls does not seem to challenge the idea of harvesting the clones' organs. They're still less than human, a curiosity. The protagonists of The Soul still do not think the clones deserve proper knowledge of their lives and have any right to bodily self-determination. The gallery distanced the normals from the clones, who would debate the theoretical validity of the clones' lives while never having to interact with them and face the real issues. We see the celebrity and grandeur that goes along with the gallery exhibitions that is ultimately meaningless. We selected the best of the clones' art and put on special exhibitions. In the late 70s, at the height of our influence, we were organising large events around all the country. There'd be cabinet ministers, bishops, all sorts of famous people coming to attend. Despite Miss Emily and Madame's claims to reform humanitarian sympathy with the clones, they never try to imagine themselves in the clones' place, and still do not treat them as human. There's no sympathy for the fact that they're in their retirement while Tommy's life is close to over. That's why Kathy's act of remembering her life is so important. There's so much more about memory we can discuss. As I mentioned before, you've got memory as the overall theme, but then you can have sub-themes underneath where you kind of segment memory into different angles. Another angle you could go with is how memory shapes identity. Although I won't talk about this in this particular video, it's in our latest new release, which is the Stasiland and Never Let Me Go study guide. In this guide, you'll see the convergent divergent strategy being used throughout the themes, character discussions, textual feature analysis, and also through the 5 A+ essays that we have at the very end of the study guide. I'm also super happy to announce to you that I've developed this bubble tea strategy for unique interpretations. So the BBT strategy, because your girl loves bubble tea, is basically how you can develop your own interpretations by finding the right type of examples and evidence. I think a lot of people struggle with this, like you go learn stuff in class, you learn stuff from study guides, you learn stuff from this video, but sometimes other people are watching or other people are reading those things too. So how do you make your essay stand out? How do you make your ideas different? This BBT strategy helps you figure out your own unique way of looking at things. So I'm teaching you the tools of how to build your own analysis as opposed to just giving you the analysis and having you regurgitate it, if that makes sense. So if that's something you're interested in, then I've got a link up there for you to check out the study guide. Please purchase and support your gal, you know? I actually wasn't even going to create the study guide this year, but because it actually just economically doesn't really make sense because it's going off the syllabus soon, but I had so many of you request it, so I've delivered. So I really hope you guys find value in it. You know, my study guides have helped a lot of people go from B's to A's, from C to A's, from A's to A pluses. So I think it will really help to boost your marks for this year's SAC and exams, and also just to help you become a better English student so that you can get that ATAR you want. Let's now move into a divergent idea. The role and value of nostalgia. The way memory can be distorted is particularly clear in relation to the idea of nostalgia for a brutal past. This idea is explored differently in Stasi-Land and Never Let Me Go, with Funda condemning nostalgia as blinding people to the horrors of the past and advantages of the present, and Kathy illustrating how drawing comfort from the past can help people through difficult time. In Stasi-Land, many disaffected former East Germans tell Anna that things were so much better before the reunification. Anna reflects, "I don't doubt this genuine nostalgia, but I think it has coloured a cheap and nasty world golden. A world where there was nothing to buy, nowhere to go, and anyone who wanted to do anything with their lives other than serve the party risked persecution, or worse." Similarly, Miriam observes while working at the radio station on nostalgia parties. Nostalgia is nostalgia for life in communist East Germany. A crazy nostalgia for the GDR, as if it had been a harmless welfare state that looked after people's needs. Most of the people at these parties are too young to remember the GDR anyway. They're just looking for something to yearn for. Conversely, in Never Let Me Go, nostalgia and false memories are shown to be consolatory and useful. Before Kathy begins to recount her childhood, she mentions a donor who was once under her care, who knew he was close to completing. What he wanted was not to just hear about Hailsham, but to remember Hailsham, just like it had been his own childhood. So the line would blur between what were my memories and his. When Kathy saw the power her memories had to console this man, she stopped resisting the temptation to reflect on her memories at Hailsham. Kathy's nostalgia for her childhood helps her reconnect with her friends, creating a sense of belonging and identity. Her attachment to Hailsham strengthens her worldview, her relational bonds, and gives meaning to her life. Nostalgic memory in Never Let Me Go brings comfort and is not deceptive, or a method of denial or suppression, as it is for some characters in Stasi-Land. Alright, so you can see from all that, we've looked at memory from 3 different angles. We've looked at it from 2 convergent points of view with 1 divergent point of view. If you found this video helpful, I'd love for you to like this video, comment down below, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. I'll link you to one of my most popular videos, which is how you can structure your comparative essays, the different ways you can do so, and which one's best. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!